Cruise news time, and we have more cruise itinerary impacts because of the conflict in Israel. And Carnival makes a big announcement about a 3-ship deployment on the west coast of the United States. And speaking of Carnival, they've circled the wagons, giving clarity about a policy and its impact on a certain item that you can bring on board, but maybe not in the way that you think. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views for your face on Monday, October the 9th, 2023. And let's start off this show by talking about Israel. Yesterday, I made very clear that this is not really a spot to get into the complexity of conflicts around the world. But still, there were some people that got in the comments and they were offended. Let me say this. If you have a heart for Israel, there's 2 things you definitely should be doing and 1 thing you should not. Thing number 1 that you should do, you should get on your knees and pray to God for the safety of Israel. Number 2, you should support materially with your treasure and your time, any way that you can, the efforts in Israel. And well, the 1 thing you certainly should not be doing is wasting your time and effort and the time and effort of others posting that you are offended by what other people are saying on a cruising YouTube channel. Look, certainly, I think social media is a great place to go and elevate a conversation, to shine a light on something that is sitting in darkness. However, if you're not turning that light onto the issue that you're trying to elevate, instead you're trying to talk about being offended by what somebody else says, then I don't find it to be effective. And again, I think it's a waste of time, especially in this situation. There are some more tangible things you could be doing other than complaining about being offended. That's just my opinion. Hey, let's put Dad Tony back in the box and talk about the things that are going on that affect cruising in Israel. I told you yesterday that the Odyssey of the Seas and the Celebrity Apex canceled their stops in Haifa and Ashdod because of the attack on Israel. Well, we have other cruise ships making adjustments also. What I did not understand at the time is there were 2 cruise ships in port when the attack began. They had to send word out to get people back on the cruise ships. They were staying there for multiple days. They had to get people back on the cruise ship and they had to bug out. One of those cruise ships was Holland America New Stadendam. The other cruise ship was the Oceania Nautica. Both of those ships retrieved their guests and were able to get out of harm's way. And now we have a 3rd cruise ship that was set to cruise out of Haifa, going over to Greece and then returning to Haifa. That cruise has been canceled. That's Royal Caribbean Rhapsody of the Seas. It's a very serious human thing going on there, going on anywhere there is conflict and war. And that's the most important thing. As I said yesterday, cruising a secondary thing that's certainly seeing the impacts. That's the latest over there. Cruise news story number 2, big news coming out for West Coast cruisers as Carnival has committed to home port 3 cruise ships out of Long Beach starting in May of 2025. We're talking about the Carnival Panorama, the Carnival Radiance, and the Carnival Firenze. They will be doing 6- and 8-night itineraries to the Mexican Riviera and other West Coast ports, and they will be doing that from May of 2025 till April of 2026. I've enjoyed some West Coast cruising. I've been on the Carnival Panorama out of Long Beach. I've said it before, this is probably one of the dumbest things you'll ever hear me say, but when I went to Cabo and when I went to other West Coast Mexican ports, I just wandered around and I went, wow, this looks a lot different than the East Coast of Mexico, which is completely logical. And I don't know why it hit me like that, because if you go to the East Coast of the United States and the West Coast of the United States, or even a state itself, the West Coast of Florida, the East Coast of Florida, it all looks different. So I don't know why I was so shocked, but man, Cabo San Lucas, one of the nicest places I've ever been. Congratulations, West Coast, for getting some more sailings. Does this make you excited as a West Coast cruiser? Have you been on any of those cruise ships? Will you go? Leave a comment below. Now we got to talk about this crazy uproar going on at Carnival over a prohibited or somewhat prohibited item. But first, I want to do 2 things. Number one, I want to talk a little bit about yesterday's show, talk about the NCL Spa situation, respond to what I think is a pretty thoughtful comment. Number two, let me take a moment to quickly invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. A big thank you in advance. Okay, yesterday I talked to you about Norwegian Cruise Line removing the spa cabins from their sailings, and my contention was it was a move to increase profitability for that cruise line, to generate more revenue. And I was a bit disappointed because I hate seeing things that used to be included in a thing be removed so that another line of revenue can be generated. And a lot of people agreed with my assessment, but there was a decent amount of people that said, hey, look, no, this might actually be better for the consumer. This may actually be the thing that Norwegian is saying, that more people will have access to the thermal spa. And so I want to share a comment with you that I think encapsulates that well. Since I don't usually share comments, this is really kind of a new thing. Let me put it in context. I'm not sharing this comment as at the person who left the comment. I think this is a really fair comment, and I think it really opens up the dialogue. So I want to read this comment, address what I think, and maybe it's something that we start doing going forward. And so, yeah, in case it isn't obvious, if you comment on the video in the public way, then I may address the comment. So the comment I'm highlighting is from Chip Bennett. Chip's a longtime follower. I feel like maybe I've met Chip on a cruise. I don't 100% remember, but I do feel a familiarity with Chip. And again, I think this is a good balanced comment, and so I'm going to read it and I'm going to address it. Chip says this: eliminating the spa stateroom category, A, leaves more capacity for a la carte thermal spa passes. B, allows flexibility to get thermal spa access with any stateroom on the ship. As for being a cash grab, the spa stateroom category had the cost of the thermal spa pass already built into the base fare, and if I'm not mistaken, actually costs more than the base fare for the underlying stateroom category, plus an a la carte thermal spa pass. So no, I don't see it as a cash grab at all. It may result in more revenue, but only because the move will enable more flexibility to allow the demand to access the supply for the thermal spa. And look, I think Chip makes a very fair argument there, seeing what Norwegian is doing, not necessarily as a cash grab, but what they said, that it was opening up the spa to more people. The only thing I want to say is this: I have worked in large organizations, for-profit organizations. I've worked for a Fortune 500 company, and there was not really any decisions that we made, not predicated or not run through the filter of whether or not this decision would equal more revenue, more profit, a cost savings for the company. Nothing was just done with this, let's do it and see what will happen. So I still hold to the contention that Norwegian Cruise Line has run the numbers on this and determined whether or not approaching their spa packages, spa cabins, spa thermal suite passes this way would actually be more profitable. And I think at the end of the day, they know that it will be. How will it be more profitable? Well, we are seeing a lot more businesses using a market value pricing system when it comes to items that are impacted by supply and demand. There's nothing out there that says the thermal spa passes, day passes, or weekly passes are not subject to price change at any time. So you could run into a scenario where on the first day of the cruise, now that more people can go to the thermal spa, a lot of these passes are purchased up. And then on subsequent days, because the demand is higher for the thermal suite, then the price to get into the thermal suite could also increase. And to Chip's point, NCL has essentially opened up the thermal suite to the whole cruise. They don't have to hold any space for people that had a spa cabin. And look, maybe I was too outrageous in my premise yesterday, but I do see a trend going on in cruising now where things that were kind of normalized, things that we were used to in cruising, they have been changing, and many or most of those changes have been a change that is a way to increase revenue, profitability for the cruise line, and possibly decrease some of the services that were previously offered to cruisers. I certainly appreciate Chip's comment. I appreciate all the comments that you guys leave, good or bad. I think it really helps inform all of these conversations. It really kind of knits us together as a community. So keep on commenting. Much appreciated. What do you think about this? Where do you stand? Is NCL trying to make money, or are they trying to offer more services to people? What do you think? Leave a comment below. Now, let's talk about the hubbub over at Carnival. This one is interesting. There's been some brouhaha going on over there at Carnival about whether or not you could bring a collapsible wagon on the cruise ship. And the unclarity about this situation was so significant that brand ambassador John Heald had to take the question up the chain to the leadership over there. They call them the Beards. He had to ask the Beards to clarify what the policy was when it comes to these collapsible wagons. And the clarity is this: you can bring a collapsible wagon on board in its collapsed form, and you can take it off the cruise ship and use it in cruise ports where they're allowed, but you cannot use a collapsible wagon on board. And the reason given is that the wheels on the wagon, it's a wagon wheel. The wheels on the collapsible wagons have been found to damage the gangways and damage the decks of Carnival cruise ships, which that's fantastical in its own right. I've had some of these wagons. I've never thought of the wheels to be destructive, but maybe so. Maybe if you mix wagon wheel and salt air and being thunderstruck, all of a sudden these wheels are going to rip up the decks. I guess the lingering question for me is, what are people using these collapsible wagons for on embarkation day? Is this what you bring your sodas on with, or your kids on with, or your luggage on with? I do have a soda question. I think the most, I don't know if it's creative, but I've seen it several times. A lot of people will use bungee cords and bungee cord their 12-pack of sodas to their carry-on suitcase. How do you bring your 12-pack of soda on board? Do you bring your 12-pack of soda on board? And what do you think these wagons are used for? Is this a big deal? Do you think wagons should be allowed on embarkation day? Leave a comment below. Well, there you go, folks. Those are the cruise news stories I thought you would find interesting today. Did you? You can show your support for the show in two ways. One, by hitting the like button, and number two, watching the recommended video that YouTube's going to pop up on the screen next. This is Tony for Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido.